Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Goffstown Board of Selectmen meeting, August 15th, 2011. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next order of business is the acceptance or the correction of minutes 8-1-11 and 8-9-11. Do I have any motions?
Motion to accept the August 1st public and non-public minutes with correction.
Need a second?
Yes, I'll second that with, I will have corrections too.
Okay. Nick?
I just have one on page 11.
Page 11? Okay.
Fourth paragraph down.
Mm-hmm.
The sentence just doesn't read correctly. Vice Chairman Campusano said, "My concern was not that the field would flood. I just didn't want whatever we do doesn't impact the abutters." Kind of, what I was attempting to say was that I'm really not concerned about the flooding of the field. It's just that I didn't want anything to create a flooding impact upon the abutters.
Okay, but I guess what I'm not understanding, did you say this?
I did not say these
Oh,
words.
okay.
Kind of the thought
Okay.
was there.
Didn't sound like
At
you.
least I hope
Yeah,
I didn't say this.
I didn't recall you saying that either, but from what you were saying, I wasn't sure. Okay, so basically, whatever we do,
Something to the effect that my concern is the impact of the field's construction upon the abutters,
okay.
flooding of the abutters.
I think you said it well when you first said it, that whatever we do doesn't
I'm sure he said
create
it
a
more
flooding
eloquently.
impact on the neighbors, on the abutters.
That's all I have.
Okay. David?
I'll start out on page 9. Second full line from the bottom, third word from the right, I'm in favor of this too, T-O-O, the number 2.
Where is that?
Second line from the bottom, last sentence there in the.
Oh, okay.
I'm in
Okay.
favor of this too. Then, back to page 11.
And spell check doesn't get that.
Yes. Second paragraph from the top, the last line, it's not a strong drain, it's a storm drain.
Okay.
Then we go to page 13. Fourth paragraph down on the first line, Chairman Navanza mentioned a village node, N-O-D-E.
Right.
And my last one is, no, it's not. Page 17, under the paragraph for the sidewalk proposal. I believe the proposal, this third line in, I believe the proposal came from Mike Hillhouse, because we all had email from him making that proposal of putting a sidewalk in where there's drainage for the first half of that stretch.
I believe you're correct.
And finally, next page, 18. The first paragraph under East Dunbarton Road. Fourth line down, a sentence will start, so hog, I'd eliminate the word hog, H-O-G. He was asking himself, Carl was asking himself a rhetorical question, so, which would have read, so could we manage to reclaim it ourselves, we asked? And then he
I
went on.
think maybe the word was supposed to be so how, H-O-W.
So how could, okay.
All right, that's fine.
I'll accept that.
Okay.
And I apologize for the mistakes, but I also will claim a slight disability with tendinitis when I was typing. So, sorry. I'm doing better this week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other corrections? Any others? Seeing none? Any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 It's a unanimous. Do we have a motion on the other set of minutes?
Motion to accept the August 9th minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Any corrections or changes? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
No.
It's
Two
unanimous for the ones who were there.
Yeah.
3-0-2.
Two.
I'm assuming that the other two are abstaining. You're not voting no.
Yes, sir.
I haven't decided yet. I'll get back.
Okay, you do that, okay? You can stay here after we adjourn and let us
Think it
know.
over.
Okay. Minutes are all set. Next agenda item are announcements. And Sue, you have an announcement, I understand? Is that-
I do. I just want to inform the public that some mosquitoes tested positive in Manchester for West Nile virus. And as usual, we just encourage people to take precautions. And those precautions are look around your yard for standing water. If there is any, get rid of it, because that's breeding grounds for mosquitoes. As well as if you're going out, to wear light colored clothing, long sleeve shirts, long pants, use insect repellent, and take any precaution you can. I know we've had several calls last week from media about this. We got public health alerts. We do not have anything in our budget to address this. Back in 2001, we attempted to get it in the budget, but at town meeting, it was zeroed out.
Okay. There is another announcement. It's a letter of acknowledgement and thanking Heidi, who works in communications. It's Heidi Roberge. Thank you so much for taking part in the Chatter Cup on July 30th, 2011 in Hooksett to raise awareness and money for autism. I appreciate all your help and enjoyed the time helping families and seeing the kids smile. Heidi, thank you again for everything, especially for taking the time away from your family to help other families. Thanks again, Jacqueline Pelletier. Job well done, Heidi Roberge. We have a couple from the fire department. I don't know if you wanted to read those now?
The Goffstown Fire Department, I want to thank you 1,000 times over again for your help on Sunday, July 17th, around 8:15 p.m. The men on call that night came to help me while I was in the middle of a severe asthma attack. Without their help, I don't know what would have happened, so thank you. I speak for my entire family when I say that the service you men demonstrate on a daily basis is greatly appreciated and inspiring. Because of your courage and selflessness, we can all feel assured that our little Goffstown community will be safe. Thank you again for your help, service, and bravery. Sincerely, Brenna Galena.
Great, thank you. Are there any other announcements? If not, we'll move on to public comment. Yeah, you know if
I
there's...
probably should have an announcement, yeah, on this.
Oh, the 250th?
Yeah, it pertains to it.
Okay.
We've been working on letters to the residents that are around the town hall, because there are gonna be some road closures and parking lot closures. So the town hall parking lot is gonna close Friday evening, somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m., and there won't be any overnight parking. That's gonna accommodate vendors that we're gonna have during the block party on Saturday, so there won't be any overnight parking at the town hall parking lot. And secondly, there's gonna be some road closures, Church Street, I think starting around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, August 27th. Church Street from Main Street to the entrance to the bank and the post office, that will be closed. Kendall Hadley Way will be closed, and a portion of Depot Street as well. What will remain open will be Depot Street to access the hardware store and Apotheca and some other businesses. That will be open until 6 p.m. And for those who want to go to the post office or Citizens Bank, they'll have to detour around on Church Street to get there that way. So I just wanted to let everybody know. And for those folks who live in the apartments next door, we do have letters that are going to be distributed
I think some have already been done already, but we're gonna do that this weekend, next week, hit it twice, to let them know that they need to park their cars, elsewhere. And I have to talk to, I guess, the chief, but is there overnight parking allowed at the SAU parking lot? Do you know of?
That'd be up to the SU.
There is the possibility of that? Okay. So just want to let people know that for those folks around here, they won't be able to move their cars because it'll just all be pedestrian traffic. So they need to, Friday night, park their vehicles elsewhere. That was it.
Chief, on the SAU parking lot, is it the entire parking lot, or is it designated spaces for the
Directly behind the SAU, it's not over by the, so there's only certain places.
Right, but I just want to make sure that all the spaces that are there, are they for the SAU, or are some of them,
On Friday night, it shouldn't matter at that point.
right,
No.
okay.
There is a one row of parking spaces marked public
Right,
parking.
that's,
Yeah.
I just didn't want it to be a mix-up on that, that's, okay. Anything else?
The other thing is that the public will not be allowed on Lions Field in that parking lot. That entranceway will be blocked off by the fire department due to safety reasons for the display of fireworks for the entire day and evening. Please don't go down to Lions Field to watch it, as you're not allowed to do it. There's a safety zone of, what, Dave, is it 300 to 400 feet around the fireworks, or something, maybe 400 feet.
I've heard the fire department speak of 400 feet.
Right. So I also wanted to let folks know that we're going to be running shuttle buses into the village from Goffstown High School, from the Villa parking lot, and from Barnard Park. So there'll be three places. So you can park at the Villa Fields, and there'll be a bus pickup at Normand Road. There'll be another one in front of Goffstown High School, so you can park there. So if you want to park at the high school parking lot, or even in the Parks and Rec parking lot, you can hop on a bus to get into the village that way, and also at Barnard Park.
And what time does that start?
That's gonna start at 12 noon, and then the buses will run after the fireworks as well. So there'll be two buses that are gonna be going continuously, and we anticipate that they'll be able to make the loop in, what was it, about 10 to 15 minutes per loop? So it's, there's gonna be limited parking in the village, so just wanted to let everybody know that they might want to take advantage of the shuttle buses.
When is this event occurring again?
August
Oh,
27th.
thank you.
August 27th.
That's 2 Saturdays from now?
Too sad.
Yep, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday.
Okay.
So,
Anything else?
that was it. Just want to give people, this way no one can say, hey, no one said anything.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure you have ample time to get in your,
Public service announcement.
okay, very good. With that, we will move on to public comment. And I see two people here, but whether or not they have any public comment, they indicate that they don't have any, so we will move on. Our next is a 6:30 appointment with Chief Patrick Sullivan. I see that he's here, but I don't think that the other people, so I guess we'll either start now, and since they're not here, no, we won't do that. I'm just teasing you. We'll move on to, well, we have a public hearing at 7:30. We can't start that until 7:30. So let's move on to the town administrator's report.
Did you want to
Yeah.
move the chief's,
Yeah, Animal
two
Control
items?
Officer.
7
He has
o'clock.
2 items to discuss?
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I
time for the
apologize.
reception.
Yep. All right, yep, if you want to do that, chief,
Yeah, it'll be fairly quick and easy and hopefully painless.
okay.
Thank you. I've received the final numbers from the town clerk concerning the dog licenses for this year. Currently, there are 57 unregistered dogs in town, with 47 households having those dogs. So we've got 47 stops we have to go door to door and knock on. My concern is that I don't have a problem doing it. It just may take an extended period of time. We're getting hit quite heavy with burglaries, some other high-profile cases that we've been dealing with, and to put a short time limit on it would be a problem of down 2 officers now. But I think we can get it done well by November.
I just have one question, though, on that. Statutorily, do we have any time window that we have to do that within? Or is there anything under statute that
I-
constricts us?
I
or-
think the notification of the board is the only restriction on time.
Okay, just as long as we're not in conflict.
We have the
with it.
whole year, I mean, we can enforce it all year long, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess whatever you can work in with your schedule, as it allows, manpower and, what the issues are that you have to deal with, I guess that's acceptable to the board?
Yes.
That, and then finally, just for some clarification, I'll finish my budget compiling, but we've got the dead animals that we're dealing with and trying to figure out, I'm looking for some direction from the board. 2 years ago, it was cut from the budget to remove dead animals. We've looked up some case law, public health, et cetera. They're supposed to be removed, large animals, and I haven't got the definition of what an animal is, but animals need to be removed from the roadway. It was $1,200 2 years ago that was removed from the budget. We were paying $25 a pickup.
Right.
We were managing those pickups so that if it was a dead raccoon in the road, if it could be kicked off to the side, it was kicked off to the side and picked up at a later date. The concern I have right now is, the other day we had a dead deer up on Daniel Plummer Road, right near the condos. And it was 98 degrees out. It had been there for a day already. And without the funding to get the shots for whoever's going to do it, the person, and then pay them $25 a pickup, I'm very tight on my budget as it is already, so that.
Question on the deer. I have 2 questions on it. Because to remove deer, you need to have a hunting license. Does that come under the state conservation?
To remove the deer?
No, well, in order to take a deer in New Hampshire,
Right.
you need a license.
Correct.
And there are other states that when a deer gets hit on the side of the road, that the state conservation officer comes and picks up the animal. I know in New York State, that's the way.
They won't pick it up here.
Okay, but here it's not.
Correct.
Is that expense generally because of the damage that's done? We know that's reported by a car, a vehicle. If we have a vehicle that's involved in that, is that something that could be covered by their insurance, as far as the removal of the animal?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm aware of.
I haven't seen that in the past.
Okay, I'm just
Right.
wondering on those particular instances, deer and a moose, or animals that are required, like that.
I've not heard of that.
Okay, but it might be one thing to just look in and see if it's something that could be recouped that way. Okay, so your question to us is?
Is it something we're interested in going forward, is removing dead animals? I mean, and I'm looking at larger animals. I'm not looking at squirrels or chipmunks or snakes in the road. But if I've got a dog, something larger, that's the way it worked in the past.
Okay.
I know that we've regurgitated this thing a few times in the past. We had an employee of the town who in the past did it as, I guess, a subcontractor, and there was some issue as to whether or not that employee was maybe acting in the scope of his employment, or there was other issues there. Is there, and under that prior arrangement, it seemed to work out pretty well, from what I gathered, in terms of the police would notify this employee, the employee on off time would then pick up the animal, dispose of the animal, and then would be compensated $25 per pickup. Where the conflict arose is there might have been a legal opinion, or through the audit or something came about that, hey, you can't do this because this is an employee.
If it's in his job duties during the day, then if he gets called in after hours, it has to be at an overtime
Okay.
rate.
So I guess my question is that if that were not, if we were to have the same employee continue to perform this service and it was excluded as a job duty, then would it still be permitted as an independent contractor? Because I understand what you're saying. It's that You then have to pay that person overtime. You couldn't pay them a flat fee of $25 because it's part of their job description. But if it's not within the scope of that individual's job description, then they could, I would surmise that they could possibly still be an independent contractor, and we could contract with this person for $25 a pickup. This is unbelievable deal for the town, and it solves the problem. And we had, I'm trying to remember the last month or two ago, we had the same issue with a cat or something, and we talked about that for a half an hour. And I'm just trying to, we had a very reliable system in the past with an employee who wasn't trying to, you know, make a bundle of, I mean, $25 to do this is very reasonable and fair, and we dealt with the issue. If there's a way in which we can solve it by doing this, I would be in support of that.
Okay, I guess though, the issue from my recollection came about following Department of Labor guidelines and IRS guidelines, because 1099 contractors, the fact that they're an employee, that they couldn't, but I guess along that line, is there a I mean, that job, that is not in anybody's job description, that's an employee of the town, my understanding, is that correct?
At the time, if we could hold off on picking up an animal, we would have highway pick it up. Okay? That same person would pick it up while they were working. And that was the problem. Since then,
How
that-
far back are you going?
3 years,
Okay,
things have changed. That person no longer has that job responsibility.
but I guess what I'm a little not clear on, I guess the question though is there is no employee in the town who currently has that as a job description? Am I correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so if that were to be an outside subcontracted duty, then we would be, that would be okay? That would meet the requirement?
I believe it would.
Well, I think the major issue for the board is, do you want to budget for animal pickup, an animal control officer next year? We can work out the details and talk to the town attorney on
Okay.
the issue, or LGC or whoever, regarding how to set it up.
I'd be in favor of that if the chief would put in his budget, like you said, $1,200.
It is presently, I just want guidance as where the board would
So-
like to go on this.
It'll be discussed and resolved as we do the budget.
Okay, Nick?
It's gonna take some time to
Right.
figure out the specifics. There are also some commercial outfits that will remove dead animals. We could also take the time and look at what it would cost us to
Yeah.
just call someone and have them come in and remove, so we'd have a comparison.
Yep. Anything else?
No, I'm in
Okay.
favor of it being included in the budget.
Okay.
I think it's a health issue.
I mean, that's why we used to do it.
Right, and
it's been
it's
taken-
not like it's a chipmunk. I mean, if it's.
Well, I think the chief pointed out, he has to get the statutory definition of
Right.
an
An
It's-
animal.
For the most part, we've always done larger animals. It's,
Yeah, I think it has to be done.
Well, but we need that also, so, you have the direction to work with the town administrator and come up with, get the information and
Yes.
have it in your budget for the budget? Okay,
okay,
any other things?
that's it for now.
Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you here for public comment?
No.
Okay. Just checking, because we went through it and there was,
What were the announcements?
Mosquito warning.
Okay. Annette Herman from the Amy Reader.
oh, okay, nice to meet you.
I missed the announcement.
Okay.
Thank you.
You missed the highlights of the day.
Okay.
We'll have to do the 250th announcement.
Yeah, right. Right, okay.
I'll do that under the 250th committee report.
Okay. Chief, whenever you're ready for your 6:30 appointment?
We'll begin.
Okay. Now, is there anything in the town administrator's report that you want to start while he's getting everything ready? Save a few minutes?
You want to do the consensus folder?
That's fine with me.
Consensus on the consensus.
The AP warrants, the event permit for the MDA charity event on 10/1/11, a car wash fundraiser on September 10th, 11, a right to inter for the Sherlocks at West Lawn Cemetery, Section 1989, Lot 59. Discharge of a lien at map 37, lot 74, and road tracking forms, there's 3 of them. Acceptance of a turnaround easement and drainage maintenance agreement, map 14, lot 9. Acceptance of the street name, Fieldstone. That was, originally you had approved Blackbriar, but 911 had issues with it. And 3 is the acceptance of drainage and cistern easements.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to accept the consensus folder.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Correspondence, you have a letter from a Mr. Centerville, 14 St. Anselm Drive, that was sent to Selectman Devanzer. He gave it to administration to draft a response from the board, and that's in your folder, draft response.
Yep. Do I have a motion to
Yes, motion to proceed with sending the letter to Mr. Centerville on the board's behalf.
Is there a second?
Yes, second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Derek for drafting your
Yeah,
response.
I would too. Thank you.
We need that.
Push one more?
Yeah, push
Yeah,
one more.
let's do one more.
Okay, assessors recommendation for an intent to cut a map 4, lot 52.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Those are all done. Thank you very much.
A full house.
What'd you say? Whatever it was, it was cute, yeah.
They really support each other when they do these.
Do you want these?
Here's a pen so they can sign.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we have a 6:30 appointment. The appointment is with the police chief and Patrick Sullivan, and it's regard for promotions and a reception for Lieutenant Robert Brown to captain, Sergeant Pierre Pouliot, and Detective Eric Serino to sergeant. Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Vanza. Good evening and welcome. As a result of several retirements, we've got 3 promotions on tap for tonight. I'd start with Sergeant Serino, if you could come on up. Eric Serino is a graduate of the Goffstown High School, associate's degree in criminal justice from the Air Force Community College. He was honorably discharged from the U.S. Air Force, which is good news for all of us. Past Goffstown Police Explorer. He was a field training officer, a detective, mountain bike officer. He developed our department website and has been trained in the investigation of computer crimes. Eric Serino. One at a time, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. I know you've been through this once before. Okay, hopefully there'll be more. What I'm gonna do is go through this, and then I'm gonna get down to this other portion where, when I start with I, okay, you're gonna state your name after that. Okay. Because I'm gonna not say my name.
Okay.
All right? Eric Serino, Goffstown in the county of Hillsborough. Whereas there is a vacancy in the office of a sergeant in the town of Goffstown Police Department, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Eric Serino, a sergeant of the said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. Raise your right hand, please. I
I, Eric Sereno,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me as sergeant
incumbent on me as sergeant
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the
the
Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Well, before, you know we do this, get the,
Would you like to introduce your wife and son?
This is my wife Sarah and my son Owen. And
You
that's
can go right through the shirt into the chest if
Go ahead.
you'd like.
Go ahead. You want to help, mommy? Go ahead. Stick it right in there. Bud. All All right. I'll pay myself.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Jake.
Sign your name in there.
It's okay, Owen. Really.
We'll get a copy back
Our next promotion is Lieutenant Pierre Pouliot from Sergeant. Pierre was hired in 1993. He was promoted. He was promoted to sergeant in 2004. He was an FTO with our department, a mountain bike officer, motorcycle officer, a DARE and officer-friendly officer. Received the Rotary Exemplary Employee Award, a Goffstown Police Explorer Advisor. He was formerly a coordinator of our volunteer program, and he's been a staff member with the New Hampshire Explorer Cadet Academy for how many years?
14.
14 years. He's received his associate's degree in law enforcement from the University of Southern Maine, and his wife Colleen, Nicholas, our son Nicholas, Devin, and Brennan are here. Pierre Pouliot.
thank you, Chief. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with this.
I state your name.
Yes, did you keep your bars in your pocket? Are they still in your pocket?
They're the spare in my pocket, just in
Okay,
case I
but the
have to
chief
check.
gave you permission to take them out? The
For
other
t-
from
for
Friday
tonight.
night?
For tonight.
Oh, okay.
Just for tonight.
Okay, that's why I was asking, okay. So with this, I know you've done this a few times. Right. And I'm gonna go through this, and as I explained to prior, when I get to down here, and I'm gonna state I, you're gonna state your name.
Statement.
Okay. And this is to Pierre Pouliot of Goffstown, in the county of Hillsborough. Whereas there is a vacancy in the office of corporal in the town of Goffstown Police Department.
I thought it was explored first.
Lieutenant. Those are lieutenant marks, not corporal.
I see. Oh, I see.
Okay. And whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Pierre Pouliot, a lieutenant of the said town, and upon you taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers to perform the duties and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. Raise your right hand. I
I, Pierre Pouliot,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me as lieutenant
incumbent upon me as lieutenant,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
and ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I'll just need your signature here with it.
Could Colleen and Nicholas and Devin come up? And I got a whole bunch of family here, including my sister-in-law Carol on the phone and nephew James. There's some and a lot of special friends.
Like to
So.
pin his badge on, right through the chest would be great.
Nice and hard, Colin.
My sting a little. Come on.
Who grows that? It's like doing reports.
Okay, and the final promotion tonight is Captain Rob Brown. Captain Brown was hired in 1995. He was promoted to sergeant in 2005. He holds a BA in criminal justice from St. Anselm's College. He's been an evidence room technician. He's been an investigator, detective with the department, mountain bike patrol, traffic crash investigator. He coordinated a very successful Citizens Police Academy in the spring of 2004, and he's assisted in developing our medical and health registration program for the community. Captain Brown.
Okay. You're familiar with this, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Just figured I'd check.
Okay, and of course, when I get to the I, I'm gonna say. To Robert C. Brown of Goffstown in the county of Hillsborough, whereas there's a vacancy in the office of captain in the town of Goffstown Police Department, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Robert C. Brown, a captain of the said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers to perform the duties and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. You raise your right hand.
I, Robert Brown,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me as captain,
incumbent upon me as captain,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
and ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Would you like to introduce your family and have them come on up?
I
And you
would.
have to share the story about your son.
All right. My wife Eliza and my daughter Molly. If you can come up. My son is away with my in-laws camping. He wanted to be here, but he said that he'd have fun even though he wasn't able to be here. So. And my mother and father, Buddy and Karen, and my aunt Susan are here as well.
you.
Sign your name there.
Right now, there's the newspaper, what they're showing, what we're all doing, then we'll.
Of course, you'll get a copy back later.
So the big question, Captain, how are your hamstrings and calves doing after the softball game?
Thank you.
Today than they were yesterday. They were so good.
Yes, please.
And everyone's invited to the room next door for some light refreshments.
Now, do you wanna go height? Do you wanna go range?
Better off to go this way.
Boy, girl, do it, however you wanna work that.
Whatever. Whose camera's first? Shut up. Push what? It's like every other camera.
That's good. Chief, you wanna get in for one?
Yeah, let's get Phil in too. It's like, what do we?
One more.
You're killing me.
Take two, Captain.
Good.
Take.
I did, that was the third one.
Oh, okay.
I got plenty of film, I just loaded.
Okay, we're back from our reception, and it's 7:30, public hearing to establish an ordinance for a no parking area from the center of 6 Prospect Street to Mast Road. And this was noticed in the Union Leader. It was noticed on 8/8/2011, page C6. And there will be two public hearings in compliance with RSA 41:14-B. The Board of Selectmen announced public hearings on 8/15/2011 and 8/29/2011 at 7:30 PM at Town Hall, 16 Main Street, Goffstown, New Hampshire, on the proposed no parking from the center of 6 Prospect Street to the Mast Road intersection. Copy of the proposed ordinance is available online at www.goffstown.com or in the administration office. Any person with a disability who needs a reasonable accommodation, please call the Town Hall, 497-8990, extension 100, at least 72 hours in advance for arrangements. So with that, Chief, do you want to present the information for this ordinance that we're going to be looking at?
I certainly can. We had a hearing with the Highway Safety Committee. As a result of that hearing, we decided to go forth with a no parking ordinance on Prospect Street from South Mast in front of number 6 number 6 Prospect, so from South Mast up to 6 Prospect. And I'll just quickly go over the declaration of the purpose, if that's all right, the no parking itself. The purpose is to promote a more orderly parking in the area of Prospect Street to include the roadway in front of the residence at 6 Prospect. Also intend to prevent, over parking in an already narrow street, which abuts the rear parking area and driveway of the French and Rising Funeral Home. Parking on the east side of Prospect Street from North Mass Road has negatively impacted residents' use of their own driveways and parking for visitors to their homes. The no parking in designated area, I've deleted the area posted at 6 Prospect Street to the intersection of South Mass, and I would ask to include the intersection of South Mass Street onto Prospect Street for 185 feet on the east side of Prospect. So that's in the middle of number 6 Prospect. It's been measured out, et cetera, so it comes right up to the middle. It's 185 feet.
So you're proposing a change to that?
Yes.
Okay.
And no parking anytime shall be permitted in that area so designated by posted signs, so to maintain the safe, effective, and efficient flow of traffic. This will also allow us to allow the ingress and egress of emergency vehicles, should we need to get them on that road, considering the turning and the narrowness of that road right in that area. And that's the ordinance in a nutshell.
Okay. All right, what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna open up the public hearing. I'm gonna ask the board if they have any comments or questions. But what I want to do, that now that the public hearing is officially open, if you can just point out the change that you're requesting?
Certainly. I'd be deleting the area posted at 6 Prospect Street, the intersection of South Mass Street, and I would delete that, and it'd be more narrowly defined as saying the intersection of South Mass Street onto Prospect Street for 185 feet on the east side of Prospect Street.
Thank you, Chief.
Which side is there no parking now
It's on the other side.
Right,
on the west
on
side?
the other side.
And that, I'm sorry, and that 185, that brings to the point of the gentleman where
Center of his property.
but I mean, is that what he was looking for also, that same spot, so he'd have access in and out and have one parking space in
Yes.
front of his house? Okay.
Basically, I think what the chief is trying to...
Just reversing the verbiage so we know exactly where the 185 ends.
Exactly. The only question though that I have is where are you starting the measuring of the 185?
At the intersection of South Mass and Prospect, at that corner on the east corner.
I understand, but is there a point in the corner that you're starting from?
I took it off the GIS mapping, so it'd be right at the corner at the intersection of the lot lines.
Okay, the only reason I'm saying that is because if somebody's gonna measure, we need a, from
Maybe
starting, we need,
Town right of way.
or something.
Precise. That's
Yeah,
more precise.
if there's
yeah.
something on the GIS, there's a point on the GIS that's markable. What we need, what I would suggest is that we mark that and that reference that, that's that point.
Okay.
on that.
This way, this way there's no confusion. Just somebody can
Exactly.
say, well, which side? Do you mean, you know, is it the right of way, or is it where the sidewalk is, or is it
It's
the
more
center line of
20
the road?
years from now, when no one
Right.
remembers
Yeah.
the conversation.
And then it becomes, well, gee, it's not 185, you put the sign in at 183 feet, you know?
And I think in this case, 10 or 15 feet matters.
Well,
Yeah.
so that we avoid that kind of a situation, David?
You mentioned the east side.
Yes.
So if I'm leaving South Mass and entering Prospect, it's on the left.
Which direction?
No,
North.
no,
If you're coming from here to Prospect, turning left,
yes.
it will be on your right.
I thought that was
No.
the side that had no parking.
Yeah,
No, that's why I'm bringing
Yeah.
it up. That side already, the
Has no
entire
parking.
side
There's no parking.
on your right has no parking.
Right.
This ordinance
Should be on the west side.
is on the other side from, which is
The same side of the street
the
as
center of 6 Prospects.
Across the street from Six Prospect.
Right.
it's on the same sign as
French and Rising.
French and Rising.
French is Rising.
Right. At the funeral home.
So I'm concerned about.
No,
if-
wait a minute. You're saying that this ordinance that we're looking at in front of us is on the side of French and Rising?
Yes.
Yes,
That's the issue, is you can't get out of the, you
Right.
can't get
because
out.
a resident that's on the opposite side has difficulty backing out of his driveway when.
No, I understand what the purpose is, but my understanding is that when you go up, this is on the right-hand side.
So
It's
that-
already no parking.
There's already
that-
no parking there.
That map that we're looking at from the town's GIS is
You're six.
north-oriented.
This is already no parking, and it would be from this point, center of this property, to the corner. The driveways are here.
You're correct.
And which side of the street is this? The right side or the left side?
It'd be the west side, the left side.
So,
Okay,
so Chief, do you want to revise that wording?
I will
We'll give you a moment.
be the west side of Prospect Street.
I think Mr. Chair, the issue is that there is no parking on the east side currently, but because cars park on the west side directly in front of the driveway, you can't get a car out. You can't back out because the road is so narrow. And that's really what the issue is. I mean, and if you had parking on both sides, it would be I think it would be questionable whether you can get a fire truck down there. It would be, I don't think you would be. So it's an older road before probably, you had, the criteria that's in place right now, and it just doesn't allow for parking on both sides. And I think that's what the issue is, and the way the driveways are aligned, et cetera, it's not a good situation.
So what this is gonna do, this is gonna make no parking on both sides of Prospect Street?
Only in a very small.
185.
That's what
Right,
I'm
yes.
saying. So for that
very-
185
yes, There will be
feet,
no parking on both sides.
there will be no parking on both
Right.
sides of the street.
And that's typically where all the cars are parked, one after another, whenever there's a service.
Well, I know,
So that's what makes it
I
extremely
was
difficult
under
there.
the impression, though. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the public. And I don't know if there's any members of the public here who wanna make a comment on it? Shaking their head no? Okay. So with that, is there any other questions or comment from the board? Chief, do you have any questions
No,
or
I don't.
comments to make?
I'll get those numbers and the locations.
Okay.
And so, I just like to point out that the legal notice in the newspaper is still correct, because this just says from the center of 6 Prospect to Mass Road. It does not reference
That was
east or-
correct.
Right,
east or west.
right, okay. Very good. With that, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And we'll have a second public hearing in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks will be the second public hearing. Okay, and any of those notifications that people can pick up, those changes will be made to those, so that
Yes,
there'll be an attachment, so that they'll be aware of that?
Put them on the website.
And it, right, okay, So we had that, okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go back to the town administrator's report.
Okay, the owner of map 12, lot 27-2, reports that she sent in a property tax payment on 6/27. When she was balancing a checkbook on 8/8, she noticed that the check was not cashed. She immediately called the tax collector, who reported it was not received. The owner came down to town hall and paid her property taxes in person. Tax collector informed her that there was a late fee of $37.69. The property owner requested the board waive the late fee, as in her opinion, it got lost at the post office. Tax collector reports that this property owner's check typically arrives a week before the due date. The tax collector does not have the authority to waive late fees.
Okay. Has the tax collector ever received the payment?
No.
And the property owners never come in with a return to them, that it was returned to them for some reason or
No.
other with the postmark on it?
No.
Well,
And I wouldn't hold my breath for that, because sometimes things get, you always read of incidents where they
Well-
get delivered 20 years later.
yeah, I know that. I know. Scott?
And we've had this before, and as difficult, I mean, as much as I would want to waive the fee, I think it opens up a Pandora's box here, shall we say, that folks who may pay late are gonna come up, are gonna say something similar, even though it may not be the case. This may very well be very legitimate. But it's, for us to properly, I guess, deal with this stuff on a very consistent basis, it's either received or it's not received. If because something gets lost in the mail, it's not, I don't know if we have that, if it's
Well-
wise for us to deviate, from that, as much as I feel for this person, because if it was me, I would certainly want it waived. But it just opens up the other side of it, that people would say the same thing, well, I usually pay, and, it's just so difficult. I think it's regrettable, but I think we have to, if we receive it, we receive it. If not, then.
Okay, can I just ask something, though, for discussion purpose? Let's say 2 weeks from now, let's say this is denied, and 2 weeks from now, the town clerk does receive a payment. It comes in the mail and it was postmarked the right time.
I would reconsider it then.
Okay, all right. I think that would be fair,
Yeah, definitely.
right? Or if the property owner came in, let's say for something reason it was returned to her.
Yeah, I think those are two
What the-
excellent reasons to reconsider it, but in the absence of that, we don't have any proof that it was ever
Okay,
sent or lost or,
all right. Then we'll need a motion to that effect.
Okay, I'll make the motion to respectfully decline the taxpayer's request to waive the late fee, with the exception that should she or he provide proof to whether a returned piece of mail.
Or received at
or-
the tax office.
Right,
Okay.
or received at the tax collector's office, then we will reconsider.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm not in favor of that. I think sometimes I think there should be just, you have to look at some of the situations. If you have someone who has always paid, they've come in, they're promptly looking at it, they're following their checkbook. I think she had every intentions of it. I think that, I'm not sure whether a mistake was made, if it was in the mailing or with that, but it sounds like a reasonable. I don't think it's something that overburdens us. And no matter what, the most you'd be looking at is a 4-day period for most people. I mean, for how much we're going to see this, I think there's a point and a place in time where things aren't this hard line, black and white, and that we do deal in areas of gray, and we have to make judgment calls of what's and what is fair and right. And I think there's a reasonable expectation of government to do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of the motion. It was brought to our attention that the homeowner has been prompt in paying fees in the past. The unusual situation is sending a check in the mail a week before it's due. In my mind, that would probably behoove me to make sure it's really been received. But in this case, the homeowner didn't notice it till the bank statement showed it wasn't reconciled, wasn't received. And from that point of view, I don't see that that's going to be a repetitive problem in this particular person's situation, or others seemingly taking advantage of that.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Person moves into town, never paid their taxes before. They mail their payment 1 week ahead of time. Check doesn't arrive here, they assume that it arrives here. They come in, they say the same thing, that I was balancing my checkbook and it never came here. And we get the same request in here, and the town clerk says, I have nothing to look at because this person's only lived in town and they never paid a tax. What do we do?
I've discussed that in this situation, there's been a history associated with this decision, and that's why it could be approved to waive the fees.
And it's not an epidemic. I think sometimes situations warrant, this is one of those situations.
I understand what you're saying, okay, but let's consider a couple other things. Scott?
The other thing is that tax bills were due on 7/1/2011, right? That's when they're due. It's on July 1. This property owner mailed it on 6/27, which I admit I tend to pay it the week it's due as well, but arguably, this is, when you wait to the last minute and something like this happens, there's a consequence of it. I just think that there are so many issues where you're gonna put the tax collector and this board in the position of saying, well, they were only here for a year or two, as Phil said, and then the other one, but they've been a long-time resident, and they usually pay, and I think it just creates, something like this does need to be more black and white. Now, arguably, I can make another argument. I used to deal with this stuff at work all the time, and I could say, okay, show me your checks before and your checks after. That obviously some of them cleared or not, and I can tell that you actually wrote your check. Because if you say that the town of Goffstown's check is check number 1050, and checks 1049 is the date before, and I can see a canceled check after, that's another approach if you want to handle it that way. But because then you do know that they actually wrote that check in that defined period of time, whether or not it got here. But all it shows is that they actually wrote the check. It doesn't show that they actually mailed the check, but it would support the person's story that, hey, I wrote a check and I put it in the mail. But
Can I put some common sense to this? Let's say the tax bill was $2,000 to $3,000. I'll just throw that out there. Do you really think someone really wants to come in after and a few days after and say it wasn't here, and they're looking and they're worrying about the $36? Or do you think they're actually coming and saying, I apologize, I wrote it? I don't think someone's trying to get away with a $36 increment piece when they're coming in to pay that $2,000 to $3,000 tax bill. That's the common sense piece. And I understand where you're going to go, and I don't want to belabor this, but this has the markings of an innocence mistakes throughout the whole piece.
And I think it does. I really do. But when you're talking about paying a half year's property tax bill, these things range from $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Is that fair to say? And there are people who may have cash flow issues, and they may post-date a check or do this, and they may get paid in the last day of the month or in the first day, and they don't know if it's going to clear or not. So that's why they do some of these things, Steve. And I just think it puts us
what for $36.
Not for $36. They write that $3,000 check, but if they don't have enough money in their account, so if it gets cashed on 6/29, it'll bounce. So they got to hold. I mean, this is the things that does happen.
I'll just stand where I'm going to stand.
Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2.
Steve and Dave were the nays.
Yes.
At tab 8B in your package, you have a memo from the Assistant Town Administrator outlining the RFP process for the Town Hall design for a Revenue Collection Office. And the bidders, there were 5 bidders. They were Amoskeag Architectural, CMK Architects, Michael Cheever, the H.L. Turner Group, and Banwell Architects. And there were 2 parts. One was 2011, the design analysis. And Amskag was a little bidder at 8,900. CMK was, Architects was at 9,600. Michael Chief was at 10,000. HL Turner Group was at 12,168 and 15,350. They had two different types of proposals. And Banwell Architects, 29,000. There was also an option for construction oversight services in 2012. After reviewing the submissions, the three low bidders were called for interviews. One withdrew. Interviews were conducted with Amskag and Michael Cheever, and administration recommends the RFP be awarded to Amskag Architectural Group as they are the low bidder for the 2011 services.
Okay. Any motion?
Motion to accept the town administrator's recommendation for bid award.
Is there a second? Second by Scott. Any questions or discussion?
This discussion, I think for transparency, the bidder is a member of a board, which has nothing to do with anything, in my opinion. No inside information. It's a competitive bid process, but I don't think anybody should.
Well, I don't know if he's the owner or one of the partners.
Or principal or partner, but I think it's safe to say that should, I think, just be disclosed, and we went through a bid process. It was the most competitive bid, and it is what it is. So, but I just thought that should be in the record.
Yes.
And these are posted on the website?
They will be.
Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
And who made the second? I missed it.
Selectman Gross.
I did.
Thank you.
And this is just an FYI. At your last meeting, you had discussed using impact fees for the design of the former Barnard and Perry land for recreational fields, and I did some research on the topic because you did it subject to having the authority to do it. Any design survey or study at 10,000 or more goes through the CIP process according to their guidelines. However, RSA 674-21, Roman 5C exempts the use of impact fees from the Municipal Budget Act. So you don't need to appropriate the use of impact fees. We have in the past because typically impact fees don't cover the full cost of whatever capital improvements going on. And so I
It's
think.
an offsetting revenue.
Exactly, and that's how it's been handled and budgeted, but it is exempt from budgeting in the Municipal Budget Act. So, I have informed Rick of that, and he's going forward and writing up a contract with, the provider.
Thank you, sir. I had one thing under, are we finished with town administrator's report?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Just one comment that I wanted to make, well, on the new business, I guess. We did receive, or we will be receiving, a grant for the stenciling at the Grassmere Town Hall. It's about 14,200 or 14,700, but it's just under 15,000. That'll cover almost all of, everything, but I think it's about $1,000 shy on that. So that $1,000 will be coming out of the restoration fund, but it's a good chunk of change on that. Okay?
So we've got the award notice, and we'll schedule that
Yeah,
public hearing.
well, I believe that Derek got the award, he got notification today, whether it was in a form of an email or,
I lost a bet on that
with the
one,
follow, what's
I
that?
think I lost a bet on that one.
How
You
many
may have.
raccoons?
I don't know, I think I owe. I'll find out.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that will be less money we have to use out of
The
the
restoration fund.
restoration fund.
Correct.
That's excellent.
Correct. Okay.
And I think Elizabeth deserves a kudos on that one. I understand she
That's what I
wrote
think,
most of that,
that's what I
right?
think I owe the bet to.
Yeah, I think you owe them to her, the Rangoons. But that's okay. If she doesn't eat them, we'll eat them.
David will find them in the produce section.
Yeah.
Vegetarian?
No, the
In the
seafood.
seafood section.
Okay. Anything else on the new business? Old
New-
business?
New business, yes. Just want to let the board know that the Friends of the Rail Trail installed mileposts along our 5.5-mile rail trail. This, no, it doesn't come apart. It doesn't.
Oh, okay, I mean,
Please
that's all
don't
right.
rip.
I was looking for the rest of them up to the
I
fort.
just,
70.
just pass that
I-
on through. So, every half mile, is a marker indicating the distance from the Manchester line. And that was a donation from the Friends of the Rail Trail.
Very nice. I want to thank them. Perhaps
Just something separate.
perhaps it's appropriate for us to send
Yep.
them a thank you note.
I'd agree.
Is that the official rail trail vehicle in the background?
With the
With the sign
decal
on
on
it.
the door, the rail trail,
Logo.
trail crew vehicle. This weekend, also the Friends are putting several truckloads of mulch on top of the berm in front of the Park and Rec building, and we're seeking volunteers to help us do that. Hand spreading mulch. And we'll also be cutting some brush behind Howe's Pharmacy. We typically do that because the trail hasn't been developed or built in that particular area, and we do that clearing so that for the Pumpkin Regatta weekend, the people can sit on the banks without brushing away, and we're killing the poison ivy as well.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Mr.
would you
Chair.
like us to send a thank you? No?
I had enough publicity on this one.
Yeah, but- Okay.
I had new business as well. We had discussed a little while ago about the issue with respect to bids. When we had a bid that was pretty close in proximity as to whether or not the board wanted to entertain a policy in which we would give consideration to a local contractor, local business, if the bid was within a certain percentage of low bid and or dollar threshold. And I was curious to see if the board would be inclined to revisit that, or if not, I'm fine with that. But I just, it jarred my memory tonight when we were talking about bids that was an open item that we had talked about 6 or more months ago, and we'd really never got our arms around. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, one thing I will say to that, one thing that I would have a concern, if we had a policy that if somebody, let's say from Epsom bid on the project, and somebody in Goffstown bid on the project, and if they came within a certain amount that we will award it to the Goffstown person, I wouldn't bid on the project. If I was a person from Epsom. I mean, I would personally would see that, and I would, to me, that gives the feeling that you're skewing it, that you want to deal with local people, and you will prefer local people to anybody outside of the town. That's the flavor that it gives.
So you don't think it would encourage bidding?
No, I think it would discourage anybody from outside of the town to bid on it, because they feel that the bid is stacked against them.
Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Our current bid process allows for the board, it doesn't say that we must take the low bid.
Correct.
So we can, which we have, I don't know how long ago when we did that, we did not, it was not a low bid, and we took, I think, the next highest bid, and I think it was slightly higher. And I think the board took, there was some criticism over that, but I think that there are times when it makes sense. There is a multiplier effect when we use local contractors, because typically they employ local people, and I think that's there's, and there also seems to be public support to use local contractors when they're qualified and when it's within a reasonable amount of money. And that's the only reason why I raised it.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but the point I'm making is, if you're gonna have a specific policy, okay, which we already have the ability to do, we can always look at anything at face value, evaluate it, who the people are that have bid on a project, and you can look at that and you can say, well, that person has to come from this far away, the job is only within this amount of money, we're gonna award it to the local person because we've dealt with them in the past. But to have policy that you're gonna have to put out in any RFP and state in that RFP, if I open up a piece of mail and it's a request for proposal and it says right in there that local people are going to get a preference over you if you're within a certain part of the thing, I said, boy, I said, you know, I get a feeling from it that I'm being, you know.
I respect that, and I'm okay with it, as long as this board and the community understands that we do have the ability to take a bid that is not always the lowest bid and award it to someone who may be local or et cetera, or slightly, we think they're slightly more qualified, even though it's not the lowest bid.
And it's not and that's not the first time, because we've done that in the past where something came in, there was a bid, it was within $200 of it. I think we did with the town report once. The bid was about $200 more, but it was a company that we dealt with. They delivered it on time. We had no problem with them. We never dealt with the other company.
Yeah, the last time it was a very, very strange thing where it was, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bids. I think it was one of the feeder roads, and it was literally like a $5,000 difference between the low bid and the next bidder. And but I'm okay with that, as long as we articulate the reasons why we take the action. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think each time.
I understand your point of view.
Every time you put it out to bid, the circumstances are gonna be different,
All right.
how things come, so, okay? Anybody else have a comment on that?
Yes, for slightly different reasons, I'd be opposed to such a policy. I would find it difficult to put in black and white words how that policy should be framed so that it would be well understood on a wide variety of contracts that we offer. And so it would be difficult to find one set of words that would be understood well in a wide variety of contracting situations.
I think that usually in the RFPs that goes out, that we reserve the right,
If accepted.
what's in the best
And if
interest
you've
of the
looked,
town.
if you looked at some of the public work RFPs, they're already 80 pages long, and this would have another whole page of boilerplate language that would be, to me, unnecessary.
I agree with the sentiment, and I think as long as the board is sensitive to the use of local businesses, but I think we can go a little further in some of our larger projects where the contractor may be subcontracting out. If our RFP said something to the effect that we would give preference to companies that utilize local, or not even preference, but something we encourage the use of local subcontractors, so that we hire one contractor who's doing, we saw it, I think, at the Wallace Road Roundabout, where
Bushes. The bushes,
exactly,
right.
landscaping material
Right.
were brought in from, outside the town from other competitors, and the locals didn't even have an opportunity to put in a bid. I don't think they want preference, they just want to have an opportunity to be on the
Right.
same playing field. So I think we're sensitive to that, and I think we'll.
Well, yeah, if you sense it, but you also have to, that if you, for example, some of those public works bids, even the ones that we just awarded the other day, the two that we looked at, when you look at it and the stuff is broken down, and you look at the items, let's say, they got pipe, they got
20 different line items.
all these things, okay, and you look at the amounts that are on there, sometimes you have somebody that's from out of town that's supplying an item for much lower than somebody that's local that's supplying the same thing, so I understand what you're saying, consideration, but if you're trying to make it into a requirement,
No, I don't
now
think- I
all of a
agree.
sudden,
Right.
that person says, well, I gotta use the local, because I'll be quite frank with you, it's the Newburyport is like that. Newburyport, Mass, you get a thing in there from that, and you have to, as a general contractor, you have to hire local people within Newburyport. They want you to buy materials from Newburyport, it's a part of the job. I was very fortunate because one of my suppliers happens to be in Newburyport. Like, there's only two suppliers in the area, one of them happened to be in Newburyport, and the other one happened to be in Boston. So, because I don't have any employees, I wasn't required of that, but I said that I am getting material, but I turned out to be the only person who bid on that particular job. But I open that thing up and I'm looking at that, all of a sudden, what's going through my mind is no wonder the cost of this project is $2 million for the high school in Newburyport. When you're looking at the project, all the requirements, they have to hire so many local masons, every trade, they had to have local people in there. You look at it, and that's what drives the cost up. So, but to be, you know, you could put in there that we encourage it, but,
Same thing.
I agree. I don't think you can require it, but I think we just need to be sensitive and creative whenever we can
Yeah.
to utilize local businesses.
right, okay. Old business?
Yeah, I had a question. We had authorized Sue to act on our behalf with regard to fuel. I wasn't sure if there was any.
You just
action.
want an update?
Yeah, was there any action taken with regard to fuel?
I contacted the school because they're the lead
Yeah.
agency going out for heating oil and propane. And he did get in contact with the vendor saying, because the vendor was supposed to be watching the price and let us know when the best time would be to go out. Did not hear back from Ray today.
It is going down.
It went, well, it was
Well,
81, now
and
it's
it
back
went
up
up.
at 84.
Yeah, so I
It's
mean,
back up to 84.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the end of the month, I think it's gonna go back down. But we'll see.
Yeah, all the forecast I saw was that it was gonna go back down, that there'd be some blips, but it would
Yeah.
go down.
But-
We're watching it.
all right, scores.
That's all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Because the only problem, you know, the problem that she's in is if she had jumped on it, let's say last week, if she had jumped on it last week, and then the price is, you know,
Went down again,
it's, and we all know that. David?
Do you have an understanding of how many gallons you'll need to order?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on heating oil and propane, we give them an estimate of gallons. We don't buy the gallons like we do with gasoline and diesel. So it's not an issue with heating oil and propane, it's just an estimate. And it's the term, and it's the heating season. So when we go out, it's gonna take us till May 1st.
Okay, thank you.
But we will use that number to estimate the full calendar year.
Okay. Committee reports, EDC?
I apologize, but I was out of town on that one.
Okay.
They did have a report. You want to read it, or?
There's
That's okay, we can read it.
All right.
We'll cut you some slack.
We do the same for sewer then?
I'll pick up the beat on sewer then.
If you'd like to.
Thank
We
you.
could read it if you want.
I'd like to just bring up several points. Sewer Commission did meet on the 9th of August. Among the items being discussed, a intermunicipal agreement with Manchester, because as you know, Manchester does treat and process the sewer from the town. And there's a new agreement that will be ready for that sewer commission to review and sign, and that agreement will be presented to the sewer commission in September. The sewer commission is about to release an RFP seeking a contractor to install new sewer lines on Reed Street and Temple Court. This is because we have discovered that several homes, the sewer lines come together on private property before they reach the main line, which may have been fine 100 years ago, but not according to standards today. Let's see. Mass Road Sewer upgrade, the construction we're all familiar with in Bernardville area. A walkthrough was held on 27 July. A punch list was developed of, I regard, minor things that needed to be corrected. They'll be worked on, and we're still anticipating paving to occur in September to finish off that project. Finally, there are a number of residents, either, I believe 11 that are still on the list, who have failed to pay the 2008 sewer fees. And That will probably lead into a tax deeding of the property, as if those 10 or 11 properties do not pay their 2008 fees. Those fees range anywhere from $200 to $2,400 on the 10 and 11 properties. Finally, there was another sewer commission meeting on last Friday, the 12th of August. And that was a workshop to put together their 2012 budget. Rather routine on all the line items. There's one wild card that they could not resolve at that particular point, and that's dealing with charges from the city of Manchester. There's a right now it could swing, it could be double what we usually anticipate because of changes in how the charges are calculated. So we're still waiting for further information from Manchester on how the intermunicipal agreement will state the actual calculation of charges.
Okay.
That finishes the sewer commission. I also like to report on the solid waste committee. I did not do that last session we met. And the solid waste committee did meet on the 28th of August. That was simply a workshop to review revenue opportunities that could be pursued through solid waste collection. There was no decisions, and the committee is still gathering information as to what they would like to present to the select board.
What was the date of that meeting?
7/28, he said.
28th of August.
July, right?
July.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
yeah, 28th of July. Yeah. Because I failed to report upon that on the first meeting we had this month.
Okay. Any questions of David? Seeing none. Planning board did meet last week, and the CIP did present its matrix. And the planning board, there was one request to make a few changes, which included the Uncanooka Dam that we had in front of us the last time. It was moving the West Union Street wing wall repairs and the Uncanooka Dam repairs up to 2012 from 2013, and moving the rail trail slope culvert repair back from 2012 to 2013, due to the two former being higher, basically due to priorities as they were. The rail trail was considered a priority, but until when the other one, the issue came in with the West Union Street, the wing wall repairs, because of traffic and the volume of traffic, that changed the priorities. So the planning board did approve that. So the total change for 2012 is an additional $2,000 as a result, and that's where that is. Then we had three other issues that we dealt with. One was the Cumberland Farms. They received their variances from the ZBA, and they came in and we opened a public hearing and took some public comment, and that was continued till September 8th. And also there was an extension request for condo units over off of Lesnick Bog Road and Mountain Road. And that was, time extension was granted for 1 year on that one. And there was also the St. A's site plan. The drainage was looked at, and the actual drainage was being reduced, the amount of runoff, to the Manchester area, because they're removing about 1.5 acres of pavement from the area, with the parking lots there. going to grass, and with that, and that was approved. And that was the planning board. So with that, I don't know if we have any other public business. Scott?
You know, in reviewing the CIP matrix, I'm thinking that we may want to get a jump start on some of this, because typically what happens is next month we'll get it hot and heavy into budgets, and then it seems like there's a mad scramble. And one of the things that we talked about, as one example, was the financial software, the accounting software that we keep on postponing. And we know that that's a pretty big ticket item. I think it's $400,000. Last year, when we went through the process, we talked about the possibility of renting to own, or there were different
Leasing?
leasing, mechanisms. So I would request that we direct Sue to work with our finance director to start looking at different options other than a outright purchase of $400,000. So this.
And just to give you an
Yeah.
update, Derek and Dawn have interviewed several companies, and that is an option that some companies are giving, like a $50,000 a year, but you have to still commit for a certain time period.
Now, is that something that we can do statutorily without having a bonded vote, or is there an out clause, a municipal out clause, which allows us to simply budget $50,000 and then? That's the big question, is if we're making a commitment to a 3 or 4 year deal, that would require a vote at town meeting.
It would, yes, I think it would, because
And is that a 60%?
you wouldn't want to put yourself in the situation of not having
Right.
an appropriation for it, because
But would that
then
obligate us
what you
to,
do.
would that require a 60%? Is it considered a?
Yeah, it would be, a
Yeah.
multi-year obligation, it's like a lease purchase.
Right, and that
it
requires 60%. And, one of the things, Mr. Chair, that I guess I struggle with is, we know that we have deferred the VAC-on truck, we have deferred the garbage truck, we have deferred some of our roads, we have deferred this financial software. We know that there's about probably a $4 million, Nick, you probably know better than anybody, because you served on the CIP. And we have put these things as special articles, and with respect to the vacuum truck and the garbage truck, I think it's failed twice. Once it was packaged in a bigger bond, failed. Last year, they were packaged separately. Fire truck passed, garbage truck and the dump truck, whatever, those didn't, not the dump truck, there's another one that failed. And so there's 2 routes to go here. We have to start thinking about this, is that, do we put it as a special article again? It's not exactly for lack of a better term, the sexiest piece of equipment one has, a big giant vacuum truck or a garbage truck, but they're absolutely necessary. You can make a valid argument that the garbage truck goes out a lot more frequently than a fire engine. Okay? But we're at a point now where this thing is breaking down more regularly, and it's not a good situation in terms of our garbage service pickup on that one. So we have to maybe start looking at, do we want to finance some of these things, lease them? Do we want to bond? It's strange because we just had our audit done, and we have extremely low debt. And, to me, not that I think it's good to take on debt, but with historically low interest rates and a lot of projects and/or pieces of equipment that need to get done, if this were me in my personal situation, yeah, I would finance it, because the cost of the equipment is going up, the price is going up at a higher rate than the financing is. So every year you wait, you're paying more money anyway, you're better off, financing it at a 4%, interest rate than we're probably seeing 6, 7, 8% increase in cost because of steel and, just the price of the equipment. So the problem, as we all know, is that every time that you put something as a bond, it requires 60% voter approval. And with the economic conditions that have been over the last 3-4 years, people are reluctant to spend money, and it's hard to overcome that 60% hurdle. So we're in a catch-22. And I think these are the type of things that we have to take a look at. you know? Do we just simply put it in our budget?
We took them out of the budget last year because of what it was gonna do to the budget
Correct.
with that.
And there was a lot of discussions with the budget committee, for that matter. You know, the budget committee, I think the majority of the members of the budget committee wanted to see it go out as, you know, see these things go out as, and let the voters have an up or down vote. But, you know, from a practical perspective, I think we have to have discussions early as to what are, you know, really what are the things that we can do, what are the things we really have to put off.
On that regard, now I'm gonna ask Nick, at the planning board discussion, one of the things that came up was some of the members, I'm not gonna say all the members, but some of the members were a little bit more vocal than the other members, and they talked about these items that kept getting kicked out, and that they keep seeing again, that we need exactly the same thing. So I don't know if CIP had any discussion along that line. I mean, there is the understanding that this is just for planning, but there was a frustration. There appears to be a certain level of frustration, and I don't know if it's the entire CIP committee or it's only, you know, certain members that were a little bit more vocal in their concern about it.
Well, I think there was an acknowledgement of the fact that we have deferred things year after year, and while they recognize that they're not a budgetary committee, they're purely a planning committee, I think when they put the matrix forward, they expressed a request that we at least respect what they did and did not completely tear it apart, so that a summer's worth of work, and if we're gonna do that, then let's eliminate the CIP committee and just go right to deciding what it is we wanna
But the fact we have CIP committee is part of the reason why we have good financial reports too. I mean, everything goes hand in hand. So
And I think.
we don't want, I'm saying that because we don't wanna get rid of, I don't.
Oh, exactly.
Right,
It's a
and-
process.
I don't think we can fault ourselves nor the budget committee. It's not like we didn't put the vacuum truck, and we did not put the fire truck, and we did not put, what was the other one? There's another big ticket DPW item. We put, what?
There was a dump truck.
There was a dump
Okay.
packer.
We did, right. It was the garbage truck, the Packer. We did put those things on. It's not like we didn't even put them on the ballot. We put them on the ballot, we aggressively, they just didn't pass. So I think that there needs to be that recognition that CIP placed emphasis on those pieces of equipment. The budget, we did, and even the budget committee, and, you know, it just didn't pass. But at some point, you know, we have to continue to let the community know that these issues are not going away, and it will have a detrimental effect on garbage pickup and on, you know, cleaning up of sewer, those types of things. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Dave?
And I'd like to reinforce one of the points you're making. Among the accounts payable lines that we approved earlier this evening, a towing service charge to bring a solid waste truck back to our Public Works Department, $560 towing charge. It's, you don't want to see very many of those occur. And so there's, bottom line of what you've just been discussing, if we do not push out, if we make vehicle purchases separate articles, there's a risk that it won't be approved. On the other hand, if we keep them in the CIP, we're facing a very large
Increase in
increase
taxes.
in the town budget.
Right. And taxes.
And that's
Right.
something that we have to persuade favorable vote towards. Put the information out for the public why it's larger.
Nick?
And taking those items out last year was kind of a double-edged sword, because we're looking at a 2011 CIP total of 280,000 going to 6.8 million. If we take the fire station 1.6 million out, we're still at, 5.2. So that's a huge increase. So sometimes when you pull items out and put them as special articles, even if they pass or fail, it reduces that CIP balance for the next year and makes it very difficult to then get it back again.
Yeah, so, the other suggestion that I had was that I know our charge, is the town, and the school board's charge is, school issues. But, I learned, a year or two ago on the budget committee that, we can't act in two different silos here. And I think it would behoove us to have either the chairman of the school board, the chairman of our board meet to talk about some of these things, or a combined meeting, because even though the CIP does this together, we act independently of each other. But I think we have to have a sit down to say, okay, here are our issues. What are your issues? Now, I can take a look at the school CIP request, and I can tell you that they have the Bartlett renovation in there.
They're
They
looking at
have
a $16 million
Right,
bond.
Right, they have, but of that $16 million bond, it's the Bartlett renovation. It's also the Maple Avenue renovation work. And then it's also a track and theater and some other things. And it's not my place as a member of the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, to poo-poo theirs, and nor would it be a school board member's prerogative, shall we say, to go and say, hey, you don't really need your vacuum truck. But I think it's important that we all sit down and at least talk about what those issues are, because if we say that all these things are important, we're gonna advocate strongly for all of the town things that we need in CIP, and the school does the same exact thing, and everything ends up on both warrants,
You'd have over $20 million.
then you're gonna have all this money on there, and then nobody wins, because then everything gets deferred again, because the public cannot afford to spend, all this money potentially bonding a school bond, and we might have a bond and/or special articles, and when you ask for almost too much, you get nothing. So maybe it's time for us to sit down and have a conversation with the school board and talk about prioritizing between the two, because we're the budgetary arms of this thing. The CIP is the planning. Us and the school board are the ones who decide what goes on the ballot, and I think it would be healthy for us to sit down together and say, okay, what do our budgets look like? What do our capital things look like, and where can we meet? What can we defer? What can you possibly defer? Maybe we go this year, you go next year, vice versa, whatever it is, but I think we need to have that dialogue.
But let me ask you this, though, and let me ask this of Nick. When this goes through CIP, this is basically some of the things that you guys are looking at when you look at it, because you're looking at it from both sides, aren't you?
We don't look at it from a budgetary side. We
No,
look
no,
at
no,
it from
no.
a needs
No,
side.
but, no, when you're looking at the matrix to balance out the year, aren't you looking at,
You're balancing town and school.
yeah.
Well, we do them independently. In other words, we'll look at the matrix, the town matrix, and we look at vehicles. We'll take that section, and we'll say, okay, if we defer this vehicle 2 years out, so it's really not done in its entirety. We don't look at the entire matrix, total school and town.
So you don't look at,
You're
next
looking-
6 years, we have requests totaling this for the town, this for the school, and you divide that by 6,
Yeah.
and this is our goal
Right.
to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's part of the issue, is that.
Right, well, that's why I'm asking this to see, so what you're doing, you're doing the town as one matrix.
And we even
the
break the
school-
town down we look at all the vehicles. And we see, okay, there's a big hump 3 years from now.
Right.
How do we balance that out? And then we go to the projects.
Right.
I think that's the only way you can really do it versus just looking at the,
Oh, no, I'm not,
Totals.
but.
but we don't do town
You,
and school
you
together.
don't do the combination of the town and the school, so maybe the thing for us to do would be to add those up, the town and the school, the way you have the matrix
Which is here.
put out for the years.
And it's at the last page gives you that
Yeah,
combined.
and let's take
town.
a look at that.
I'd be reluctant to start publicizing the combination of both school board and select board potentials.
Can I ask
Because
why?
neither board has discussed the line items yet.
I agree with
So
you, but
why,
neither board
why
did, but
put the bottom line out there?
I will say that although neither board has voted as to what's gonna be on a ballot, both boards have put numbers in place through department heads to plug in this matrix. So they have tacitly
Well,
said, these are the needs.
Let's not say boards, because at the point that this stands right now, that it's been approved by the
Department
planning
heads.
board,
Right.
this is the CIP as adopted by the planning board right now, and this is a public document,
Yes.
okay?
Just
That's,
to clarify, it's the planning board's presentation to this board and to the school board. I'm happy with that. Just make it clear.
well, I wouldn't say it's the planning board's presentation, it's the planning board's adopted CIP matrix.
Okay, they've adopted it for presentation to these boards.
Just a comment there, and I agree with a lot of things that have been said here tonight. And if my memory serves me correctly, when we did the budget last year, we looked for a zero impact on the budget, correct? And part of that was when we did put these items.
Zero impact on the tax rate.
Thank you.
Tax rate, right.
Okay. When we put these items out, these articles out there, I don't think everyone said, well, we'll let the voters decide. And I don't think anyone really expected any of them to pass. And that includes those on the budget committee, and even myself, I didn't see that there was gonna be a strong possibility of passing. I don't see that this year either, okay? And it's not because people are looking at it from a standpoint of, I don't think they get the connection sometimes, and it's hard to get that message out that we put them off 1, 2, and 3 years. That's a message that's tough to get out. And that was part of the conversations I remember last year with the budget committee, and at least I know what my comments was, well, if it's not, it wasn't the year before, and it wasn't last year, if not then, when? Because eventually it does have to come to pass. And now I think we're getting to some, what I call mission critical pieces. But if I'm not dealing with this on a basis such as maybe with the budget committee or boards or department heads, and it comes out in a vote in an article, it's just, well, hey, my trash is still being picked up. I don't, in other words, the importance of a vac truck or the
The
trash.
average person does not recognize
It's
that.
not, and getting that message out saying, you know what, we've put this over 2 or 3 years, and now it's mission critical. In fact, I made it a point to go down to DPW, and I looked at that vac truck, and I shared this the last time, I was looking at the garbage truck, and I thought it was the old one, that they were working on one, I thought it was the old one, and that was our newest one, and it was in pretty sad shape, but to my point, though, is that, and I agree with Scott, that the bonding issue does, that's a very inviting piece, but even then, it's that 6% vote is that difficult piece, but I think if we go forward and say, we're gonna put this on an article, I think you're gonna get the same result. And so I think this is that point now with the budget committee, there has to be better conversations now saying, hey, by the way, because already they're looking to go back to that zero, how did they phrase it this time? It was a little different on the phrase.
No increase in the tax rate.
No.
That's the goal.
No,
The tax bill, someo's tax bill won't increase.
thank you. And so it was, and so part of that would be, well, eventually that's an impossibility to sustain that type of process. And so we have to, as we look at all these things, we talk about which project should we take, or which piece of equipment should we purchase. I mean, we have to decide the piece of the pie, how big it's gonna be. And then from there, you can prioritize it, but if we're still having conversation with budget committee, that, hey, we're gonna look at a zero increase, well, we're starting on the wrong foot. I think people have to look at it, eventually, we've gotten to the point now, some of these things have to be done.
Right, no, I agree with you. There's a couple of issues. The first question I'm gonna ask of Nick. This year, did we have a member of the budget committee serving on CIP?
Yeah, Ivan.
Did he attend?
I don't know.
Yes,
Yes.
he was at the
Okay.
meeting, I was there.
Okay, okay, that's good, because the year before, we didn't,
Right.
okay? So we have a member that's on there, which is good. There's a couple of issues that I have that are concerned. I mean, exactly what, I agree with everything that where we're going. My big concern, though, that we have as we go forward through the budget process, is the sentiment, and the sentiment that I'm discussing, that I'm bringing up, is basically been done on a national basis, not necessarily southern New Hampshire, let's say, okay? But more of a national basis, and the sentiment is the amount of people that feel that we never got out of the recession, okay? That the economy is going in a wrong direction, okay? Things are not improving. That sentiment appears to be a national sentiment. So that's something that we're gonna have to deal with.
Right, even though New Hampshire data and southern New Hampshire data is much better than national data. I mean, our unemployment is at
I agree.
5-point-something percent. We've seen some job growth in certain areas. Our job sector in New Hampshire is much more diversified than most states, so, we're faring, a lot better. We've ginned out a lot of more of our foreclosures than say other states have.
Right, I agree. The thing, though, is that as we go through this process, so the fact that we're delving into this, what we're dealing with, we're a little bit more aware of whether something is a national trend and where New Hampshire is, and perhaps where Goffstown is a little bit more than what is generally reported in the news on a general basis. So that's something that we have to be aware of.
I think we have to put a lot of different options on the table and really analyze them, and that is options of putting special articles out again, bonding. Do we bond separately? Do we do the lump sum thing? What is the duration of the bond? The other thing that we talked briefly about last year is the use of fund balance. Use of fund balance can offset some capital expenditures. We know that we have a fairly healthy fund balance, and when we talk about trying to put all options on the table, that is an option. I know it's not something that people like to do, but if your fund balance is rather healthy, it's something that we can explore. We could partially fund or fully fund a piece of equipment through fund balance. It's an option. We can't, again, if you're gonna rent or lease, that still requires 60% vote at town meeting, so that obviously is same as if you bond. And then the other thing is outsourcing. Can we outsource anything? Can we do anything intermunicipal? Obviously on a vacuum truck, we use it so often that you can't share a vacuum truck with Bedford. Just does not make sense. You can't share your dump trucks with, other communities because you need them, but maybe there's a situation where for certain plow routes, maybe we privatize one route. I don't know. To see what would it cost for us to privatize one portion of our plow route because we can't keep doing this stuff. I don't know. And I'm not saying that that's where we should go, but I think we certainly need to explore it.
One other thing, though, that we're gonna have to deal with is we know we have a certain amount of impact from the downshifting from the state, a certain amount there. There's another issue that's come up, and I don't know if we've gotten all the information in at this point, but I don't know how many of you are aware of the state policy because of the shortfall in the state budget that's gone to DOT.
Right, they're not gonna plow it.
What's coming up with
State roads.
certain
roads, yeah.
Right, certain portions of the state, and we don't know how
Right,
that
they haven't
impacts.
adopted the policy yet.
Right, they haven't adopted the plan. They basically floated the idea to see what kind of a reaction they get, and from that point, but it's gonna affect how much salt, I'm sure it's gonna affect the amount of salt that they put down on the main road, But they're gonna have to prioritize, but that's another thing, and you know, the average person that lives in Goffstown doesn't substantiate whether or not it's the road that they have to go down is a state road that's plowed and sanded by the state. All they know is it's in Goffstown, it's their road, and they pay their taxes, and they expect the road to get plowed, to be serviced. Scott?
Right, and I'm just saying that I know that these discussions are gonna be had in the fall and leading into the winter as we talk about budgets. Carl has come in here numerous times and talked about how we take pride in our community of having probably one of the best plowed road systems in the state, no doubt about it, because we have a black pavement, policy for the most part. But I'm curious to know, if we didn't have a black pavement policy, what are the cost savings? So DOT has obviously said, we've got a 10% budget cut across the board, and in order to hit that, we're not going to plow as frequently some of these state roads that are not heavily traveled. That's what they've pretty much publicly said. If we went to not having changing our policy on plowing, where we don't go around and make these the loops as quickly as we normally do, you may not plow until it gets to 3 inches or something like that. And although I'm personally opposed to that, I think we have to let the community know that if we change from black pavement to another type of policy, we could potentially save $100,000 or $200,000. Is that worth it to the community?
Well, let me just say this up front, okay? We looked at that at one point in time when that was one thing we looked at. Because again, a lot of towns didn't have it, and we started to change the policy. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we had to have a policy, and, again, it may have been that we're not gonna, 1 inch, the amount of snow when they went out and what they were, and I'll tell you what happened was, we had some people who were very happy that there was not gonna be any sanding and salting on their road anymore. They could care less because they had 4-wheel vehicles and they didn't have much traffic on the road. The overwhelming majority of problems that we had was people coming into the board, complaining to the board that the plow didn't come by, that they pull out of the driveway to go to work, and because the plow didn't come by, they wound up in a ditch across the road. They got a $650 front-end job. They were out of work and a tow bill, and they wanted to give the town a bill for $1,250. Because they were very upset with it. We went back to that policy that we had.
Yeah, I just envision these things are gonna rear their ugly head again, and it would be nice to see, here are the options. We've looked at them. We've talked about turning off streetlights. We've talked about garbage pickup every other week. I think at some point, as Steve mentioned before, I don't know how you can say that your tax bill is not gonna go up when all the costs are going up, and we have to let people know that we're cutting services or their tax bill is gonna have to increase. It's one or the other. It's not,
Right.
There is no status quo as far, we have pulled the bunny out of the hat now for 2 or 3 years. There's no more tricks. We can't do it. We've deferred things. That's really what we've done.
The hat is empty.
Right, and I'm saying, we've had more people come in recently over the last 3 or 4 months talking about the bad conditions of roads. So, I mean, it's starting to, get to that point. That garbage truck, Steve looked at it. We've had more breakdowns on that truck in the last 3 or 4 months, those trucks, so that's problem.
Well, last Tuesday, the trash didn't
Right.
get picked up by
Yeah.
me until 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so it's catching up. I did have a question, and I don't know if it's been, I remembered it when the chief was here, but did we come to any resolution on the school resource officer? Because the last that I remember,
I don't think so.
the school district said that they weren't including it in their budget. And the last that I remember was that we were saying, well, if that's the case, then we're not going to supply a school resource officer, and I haven't heard.
I thought when we went through budget, the police budget was predicated on that revenue.
Correct.
Right.
When we made the targets.
We didn't budget for the revenue, because we didn't know if it would pass, so we weren't gonna depend upon the revenue.
Okay.
But we had decided that on
Yeah.
school resource officer, if the school district did not in other words, if they did not find it of value, then, you know, in other words, that they would not.
I'm just
put it in their
curious as to
budget.
where we stand with
We-
this
we
thing,
weren't-
because
we weren't
school
going-
starts
we weren't
in,
going to fund it.
another,
We weren't going
another
to fund
3
it.
weeks, and, it's
Right.
been silent, you know?
All right.
But we said we
Sue-
weren't gonna fund it if they didn't.
Yeah.
Sue, make a note of that so that we can have that in your report next week.
Does anybody in the board feel value in having, like, either chairman to chairman having a discussion, or chairman and the Sue and the superintendent talking about this CIP, what is, and having some dialogue here, because it's one thing, it seems like they are talked about
Well, let
in a
me
little
ask
bit
you,
of silo,
let me
and-
ask a question. Do we have a member of the school board on CIP?
Yeah.
What if our CIP member, and I would feel, because you're a lot more familiar with the CIP, what the CIP in the process, you two guys work together on a committee, and I would think that you could probably have a better discussion, since you probably have somewhat of a working relation. I mean, I don't mind doing it, but I think that.
My point is this, I'll be very blunt, is that there is no, I don't think it's prudent for both the school board and the town and the Board of Selectmen to put forth all this stuff. There's gotta be a little give and take. So whether we give and the school board takes, or the school board takes, and I don't care. But for the good of the community, we both can't just act independently and just make believe that both of these warrants don't affect each other, because the people pay the one check on the tax bill. And there are needs, and sometimes we have more pressing needs than they do, and sometimes it's vice versa. I think it's important for us as both boards who develop budgets to sit down and to say, okay, this is something that's really critical for us, you know? And again, it's not my place to say that that financial software is more important than a track. You know, I mean, we may have to have that discussion, but by the same token, I can honestly say that, yeah, we've had portables at Bartlett and Maple for 10 years now, or more. Yeah, that is an important thing. I've been in Bartlett School. That place is in need of some major work. That may be more important than something that we have on our matrix, but shouldn't we have these discussions, and at least we all know where we all stand? Because right now, Nick and Sue are privy to that, and Dave, you went to a couple of meetings, but 8 other board members on the school board and 4 members of the Board of Selectmen don't know what each other's needs are and what's going on. And I think that would be helpful.
But I guess in looking, the school board's needs are covered by bond. So would we be asking them to not bond things?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, or maybe vice versa. Maybe, I'm not.
But that could ultimately increase the school budget. I mean, because if their bond passes, there's no impact this year to their budget.
Okay, and I understand that. You understand that. But we've got 8 members of the school board and 3 or 4 of us here who've not gone to any of these CIP presentations, and I think it's healthy for us to have a joint meeting every once in a while, because I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was Bill Gordon brought it up, and it was just like, what are you guys operating in a vacuum? You don't know what each other's doing, and I think it's important for the community to understand that, yeah, we do meet as a joint board every once in a while, and so everybody knows that these are some of the issues that are going on. I mean, I don't know if our class sizes have crept up, to a very high level, and it's very, and that's a major problem. I don't know these things, but it would be important for me to know them, because I think the community expects that from us, That's just my take. I think it would be helpful to have a combined meeting with the school board to at least go over this CIP.
Well, let me ask a question, though. Do you think that there's any value with Nick meeting with Sue?
No, I don't think there is. I think there's more value.
I would think there'd be a limited value. I would think there'd be more value maybe in a workshop format for both boards to meet.
And it's more than just this scope, okay? We share the same issues with regard to health insurance and trying to manage those costs. We share fuel bids. Are there anything that we can do that we can work together on? It can't hurt. It can't hurt. It can only help us.
just another I like the workshop idea. I understand what, we talked about the two different boards. I think there should also be some type of representation probably from the budget committee, as part of that communication piece, that you just can't come out and say, hey, zero increase. You need to know what's driving some of this. Though they get that information, but it'd be a better feedback.
I think, I don't think we want to make this thing so unwieldy that we've got 30 people
No,
in
no,
the
not-
room, but
not-
having the chair, or the vice
membership.
chair, the budget committee also
Representation.
there would, at least is good for that communication, so that everybody's kind of on the same page.
Yeah, I'm saying a representation, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Well, the concern that I would have, okay, if you have members of the budget committee there, first of all, you have two different boards, school and town, that are always, let's face it, they're competing for resources from the same source, okay? And they go through the budget committee, okay? So. Who broke down in tears? So you have a normal feeling or concept, okay, of those two boards, that what they've put forward through that CIP process and what's gone through that CIP process and what's been approved by the planning board and the priorities that you have set forth, 1 through 5 under priorities, okay, that those things that, as they're prioritized, they are their needs. And when you have two different boards trying to, and I'm not saying that it's not a good thing, so don't misunderstand me, but you have that natural tendency for each one to feel that what they have in this CIP matrix is very important to them.
Right, and I will, if I were to step back and think back when I was on the school board, and maybe you heard this, Nick, is that, okay, it's a $16 million bond. The first year, no impact. Second year, now you start making your payments. In their mind, they're saying to themselves, we just retired a Mountain View and a Maple Avenue bond, which was costing us, prior to the retirement of that bond, last year it was 300 and something thousand, but before that it was running $600,000-$700,000. And if they're looking at a bond payment, principal and interest of, let's say they're gonna go a 20-year bond, I don't know, what were they looking at, $1 million payment a year? Is that what they were looking at?
About 9.
Okay, so they're looking at, okay, we're gonna fulfill some of our capital needs in bond over, say, a 20-year period with a $900,000 payment. We just retired something, so we're really not, we're really not increasing it. It's only a slight thing, but yet no, it is, Steve, but it's not. If you look from what it was, say, 3 years ago,
I'm just saying,
it's kind of a push.
It's an increase.
Slight, okay? And that's maybe how they're looking at it. Now, we're looking at it because if you look at our CIP, it's always very big, because you're talking about every year we're trying to replace a $200,000 dump truck. Which we're replacing 2 or 3 police cruisers at 110, 120,000, just our vehicles alone.
Right, I
Seems like we're
understand,
replacing.
and from their viewpoint, okay, the police vehicles, those pieces of equipment, the VACCON truck, to them, they have no value.
Well, no, they have value, but in terms of they don't,
They're different
they're
priorities.
different priorities.
That's what I mean. To them, it's not a value. I
Right.
mean, if, there is a value, but it's gonna be the lowest priority. To them, to us, it's gonna be the same, so there's a there's that dilemma that we deal with. And we deal with that through the budget process, through the budget committee.
Right, but I think there is no harm in
Oh, I don't disagree
educating
with you.
8 other school board members as to what does a vacuum truck do? Why are we in such a pickle? All the other stuff. And conversely, there is no harm in educating 5 Board of Selectmen on Do you know that we've had these portables and that they're problematic when a kid has to go to the bathroom, they have to go inside, and, that we're crunched for space at the Bartlett School and the electrical needs to get upgraded or whatever, or the HVAC, and there is a benefit in knowing what each other's problems are.
But that's the point.
Right.
Do you think that those issues that you talked about with the portable schools
Yeah.
and those issues are gonna change any members here about the importance of the garbage truck?
Yes. Yes, it would for me.
but-
And certain things, yeah, because I think what it would highlight, for me, is it would help me, in my mind, prioritize. Because the reality of it is that we represent the community. And when that member of the community goes in there and they have to vote on 5 different warrant articles or on a bond, guess what? As Steve said before, they pick and choose. They may pick 1 or 2. So why wouldn't we, as representatives, try to prioritize?
But it's a little more than that. If we were to sit down with this, like you said, you can't work in a vacuum, and we talked about it last year, and we said, geez, let's make sure we don't go forward doing it this year. If we sit there with school board with some representation from the budget committee, we can look at this whole piece and we can look at the strategy of how to implement and get the most out of it. Because you don't want to be going into the final parts of these budgets and all of a sudden you don't really realize what the school side is going to have an impact on the tax, and the school side doesn't know what the town side is going to have on taxes also. We can sit down there, look at these projects, and I agree with you, everyone's going to have their pets and their priorities. That's the nature of the business out there. But we could at least look at that strategy or what this, in other words, if they're talking bonding and what that's gonna cost in the tax piece, and if we would do a different way of purchasing equipment or taking some from fund balance or doing a bond.
Right,
In other words, we can find out what that
Okay, but-
final number is gonna be, and
Let
have
me-
a strategy to go
Let
towards
me
it.
ask you one other question. And I know, Dave, you wanted to make a comment, but let me just ask one question on that. Because you keep mentioning members of the budget committee in there. So if you have the Board of Selectmen, you have the school board, and you have 2 members of the budget committee. The other members of the budget committee, if I was one of the other members on a budget committee, you know how I'd look at it? I'd look at the Board of Selectmen and the school board are trying to come into the budget committee with everything figured out ahead of time and putting an end run around. That's the way I would look
See
at
that?
it.
I think they're trying to show those who work and trying to work
Trying to
together to
work with-
Well, I don't
prioritize
know.
and
All 3 groups need to be together as they go forward, or else it becomes a difficult situation.
All right, Dave?
All 3 groups, I'll pick up on that. We have a difficult time getting 2 of the groups in, thinking along the same line, and bringing a third party into the discussion is going to make it all that harder. The point I wanted to bring out, though, was that, I'm sorry, I don't see that the voter's guide written by this board or the voter's guide written by the school board is going to say in black and white, we've not put $1 million into our budget this year because we want the voters to favor $1 million expense on the town side of the ledger. I don't see that happening in a black and white text of the voter's guide. So all this discussion is for naught. We justify our budget purely, and we do it with the budget committee, and then we do it with the voters. And it has worked in the past, it'll continue to work.
Nick?
I would say it's not working.
Scott?
Yeah, I don't think it's working that great, and I think there's a lot of pressure on the budget committee to be that arbiter of school versus town, and it can't hurt for us to hear those 2 arguments. And I was a little embarrassed from, a year or 2 ago when I didn't actually know something about the school and what they were doing. And I think you should know that in context. So if I asked us, like right now, what's the school budget gonna look like this year? And you're gonna say, I don't know, I'm not a member of the school board, I have no clue. Well, I can tell you that the school budget will probably be relatively flat. Why? Because they have what coming up? 2 what? 2 contracts, support staff and teacher contract. We have potentially 2 contracts coming up. So now, isn't it important for all of us to know that we have a potential firefighter contract, we have a potential Teamster DPW contract, they have a teacher's contract, they have a support staff contract, they have a bond. We have all these pieces of equipment, and then we have 2 budgets, and we haven't even talked about any petition warrant articles that might come out. Isn't that important for everybody to at least know about? I think it is important. And we're educating ourselves here right now. Do you really, I know, I can speak with full confidence that, I don't believe all 9 of the school board members know what's in this CIP. And I doubt that they have any idea of the urgency of some of the pieces of equipment that we have, or our financial software, or some other things. Now, should it be the responsibility of their budget committee rep or their CIP rep to inform them? Sure. Does it always happen? Not all the time. And we share so many issues legislatively, health insurance-wise. I mean, personally, I think we should minimally have a meeting, at least 1, if not 2 joint meetings a year, to talk about things that are of common concerns and interest. They do come in here on our leases, where we have the chairman come in, but there's just a lot of crossover.
Just a point to add, you made a good point. That was one of the takeaways from the wrap-up of last year at the budget committee, after the budgets had been, I think it was after the vote, correct?
Yeah.
It was the last meeting before their break. That was the big takeaway, saying, you know what, there needs to be better communication and a better understanding where parties are going, and just wanted to follow up on that. And I think it was something that we spoke about, because that, we spoke about that after their meeting, because we as we do our committee reports, and at that point, I thought was a pretty good idea also.
So, I mean, I respect the will of the board. I mean, I personally think that there is only benefit in our boards getting together for a workshop to at least have some of the discussion that we just had right now. I don't think there's any harm in
Was
it.
this workshop gonna be Board of Selectmen, school board, and members of the budget
No.
committee?
I would say the chair of the budget committee, just there to, and maybe the vice chair, but no more than 2 people. And just so that they're there, and that they understand what we're trying to accomplish, that there is no perception of an end run, that it's open, honest, transparent, that we're trying to talk about common issues. How do we prioritize, how do we understand each other better, and try to come to some common ground to make everybody's job easier, not to just work independently, because I think the voters and everybody, they really want us to try to work together and try to come up with an approach that'll help the taxpayer, not just, independent. I think it's important.
I was just gonna say, it would be a public, because of the quorums, it would be a public meeting.
Oh,
Still a
yeah.
public meeting.
All members of the budget
Anybody
committee
can
would
come,
be free to come,
right.
and
But in terms of having discussion,
Right,
there's 2
participation.
members of the budget committee that will participate. Anybody can come and listen.
Would you want me to contact the chairman of both of those committees?
Yeah, I think it would be a good
I'll do
idea
that.
to,
If that's what the board wants like,
Right.
I'll do that. And I'll call to try to get some conversation and see if there's interest.
you're right, I mean, they could turn around and say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks, and that's possible,
Okay. All right, I'll do that. I don't have a problem with that. Okay? Do we have any other public business?
With respect to our budget, where we stand, I mean, we're October 15th, and we're gonna start that process in, say, September, and really go full swing in October. Is there anything that we need to do, Sue, that you think is we always know that health insurance rears its ugly head, and then a lot of times when we start talking about budgets, health insurance is always an issue. Should we be looking at these alternatives now, not waiting to the last minute? Because then when we do wait,
What alternatives?
change of plans and what are, deductibles and things of that nature, because a lot of times when we do that, then all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't do
I thought
that.
we had decided to stay with the plan we had and estimate a 12% increase with budget purposes, because we don't have everyone
Right,
on
on the
this
same
plan
plan,
right now.
right.
And our goal was to get everyone
Right.
on the same plan.
And I'm good with that.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that, but by the same token, as
The
for
following year,
future
you
for
could.
planning, I would like to see what these things are gonna look like, because, if there were deductibles put into place, or just increases in employee contributions, et cetera.
And things may change by next year too, depending after what just happened with the one ruling on Obamacare.
Right. I don't think we're gonna know for another year on that.
No, I know,
Well,
but it's
well,
gonna
we're looking
affect the
at-
insurance, because that's what's causing it to go up.
2 more years of a contract, so in the second year, you should be exploring other options for negotiation purposes.
Okay,
I'm good.
And the other thing that, you know, we have talked about some things in our P plan that may have budgetary implications, and that was another thing, well, we can't change our P plan because we don't know the budgetary implications of what, you know, this may translate into, and I think if we're going to even contemplate a change in any P plan for next year, you have to budget this year
That's right.
for that. So I just want that to be
And we
out there.
have, and we know those numbers.
Okay.
yeah, okay,
We've also assumed, worst-case scenario for increase in other insurances, because we're on the TRIM program, we're capped at, can't go any higher then. So we'll
Right.
use those numbers in the department head level budget, and our hope is before the selectmen conclude, we'll have real numbers on all those insurances.
okay. So if that's the end of our public business, we'll need to go into non-public. Okay, we're gonna need a motion to go into non-public for RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2A compensation.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
We are in non-public session, and I don't believe we have any public business after we come out.
Nope.
So with that, we will be adjourning right after our non-public. Thank you.